And we're live. All right, we're live. Hey everyone, for those of you just tuning in, this is WordSesh. I've taken over from Scott for a session and two, so he can catch a little bit of break. Hey Barry, hey. That's a lot of me for one morning, but I'm only going to be here for a while. And I want to introduce the next speaker, who is Kimb Jones from Make Do. Hi, Kim.
Morning.
Hello. And he's going to share some awesome stuff with you. So with that said, Kim, maybe I will just focus on your slides and leave you to it. Okay,
so this is a presentation. So what it will mainly be is me speaking over slides. Let me just fire them up and we can get started. So I assume we've got the intro slide on Petchy. Can you just give me a thumbs up?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Right, great. So I'm going to talk today about working for yourself with WordPress. This is based on the journey that I took me about 5 years from the moment that I started using WordPress to be able to work out that you could actually build a business around it. Left a secured job, made a few mistakes, and ultimately started Make Do, which is the agency that I co-founded with another guy, and I'll talk about him in a bit. And the screenshot from our website, and I put this in place earlier, because I think it's difficult, and we really do struggle as WordPress agencies to focalize what we actually do. Because when it boils down to it, we're just like all the other agencies, but we're better because we use WordPress. And there are agencies out there that build websites, that do design and marketing, and they all use WordPress, but they don't have it at the core of their business like we do, and like some of the other businesses do. I'm thinking, like Human Made, who Petya works for, obviously 10up, some of the VIPs. But it's still difficult. I mean, I was at a networking event last month in Bristol, sat at the table, and I said, we run a WordPress agency. And they were a table of 8 people had never heard of the term WordPress agency. So it's still quite a new thing. And obviously we work with a copywriter to craft the message on our website. And that's what you're seeing at the moment. But going back to the steps then, this is actually an extension or a portion of a talk that I did back in 2014 at WordCamp Europe in Sofia. It's been done a couple of times. I also did it in London back in January. But the thing that stood out of the longer version of this talk in Sofia was these 10 steps. And I got a lot of great feedback at the after party. So I thought I'll just rip them out and make out of them. And they focus on WordPress, but also just general business stuff. So it's been updated for today for the WordSeshes. And if you've got any questions or anything like that, if we've got time at the end, then we can pick it up. Or feel free to find online. This is a little bit more about me. So I'm managing director and co-founder. And that is my digital avatar, which a friend of mine yesterday told me that it looked like a 7-year-old girl. So yeah, that's something that I didn't expect. And as managing director and co-founder, you got to wear a lot of hats in a small agency. So I'm also designer, front-end developer, and lead event organizer, which means you got to do a lot of things when you're a company that are outside of the comfort zone, maybe of where you originally started off. The best way to describe what I now do is I'm sort of a filter or a lens. I filter in all the stuff that comes outside of the business, like client work, ideas for new events and new products, and then we focus on doing them and turning them into actions. So project management on a business scale. This is where I am from and where I am speaking to you right now. It's a tiny little town in Yorkshire, in South Yorkshire. You can see on the map, we got Manchester not too far away, Sheffield, Leeds, just above, and York. If you zoomed out, which I'm not going to do, you'd see that we're slap bang really in the middle of the UK. We got Scotland at the top, and then down underneath us, we've got London. But the main point is that I want to make with this slide is don't worry about your location. The internet, and really this only happened probably in the past 10, maybe 5 years, that remote working, a decent internet connection and a smartphone means that wherever you are based in the world, as long as you're flexible enough and work hard enough, that it shouldn't matter that you've got no clients in your local area, because you can work with anyone in the world. And we've got no clients in Barnsley. There are some agencies here already, but they take up most of the work, so it's quite a saturated market for what is a very small town. And the same goes for Sheffield, Leeds. Manchester's a little bit bigger, so we do have some client work over there. And like I said, most of the get is with working with other agencies to provide them with WordPress support, and those agencies are generally in London or Manchester, but we don't have any direct clients that work with us locally, and it really doesn't matter because it's not too difficult to travel. So my previous life was here. This is the NHS, or the National Health Service, and this is actually Europe's largest employer. And if you get a job here, the idea is that you got a job for life. And I work specifically here, and this is my local hospital or foundation trust, as they're known. And the site that you see there, that's actually a screenshot that I took around about the day that I left. They have since then. This was 3-4 years ago now. But the great thing about this is it was built in 2007, and it was the first ever NHS Foundation Trust website to use WordPress, and I built it while working inside the organization. And I'm still very proud of the fact that it's in the WordPress showcase as one of the very few NHS sites, because it was one of the early ones. The problem is, again, this is general advice around when you have expectations to work for yourself. My co-founder and I, Matt, we left jobs in public sector, NHS, and local government. We weren't able as a new agency to get any work with them because we were too new, too young, too much of a risk, because we didn't have any kind of background in financial background. And it's only been until now, because we've got like 2 or 3 worth of accounts on the books, that we can start to tender for larger work within this sector without having to partner with other agencies to be able to do so. So the point there is, don't leave a big organization, especially a public sector one, and just assume that you'll be able to resell your services back to them as an agency. Subcontracting or freelancing is a little bit different, but there's just too much. The project managers and the bean counters won't accept the fact that an agency that started 2 months ago should be allowed to build a 30 or 40 grand website. They just won't accept it. So you've got to bear that in mind, and it's just something that we were completely ignorant about early on. So finally then, on my old life, I used to work in IT web, and then I moved over, thankfully, to digital marketing, which is much sexier, as you can see from the image. And the IT web stuff was really a mixture of SharePoint and Paint, which evolved into a managerial role that meant that I worked alone on all the web stuff in the organization and really didn't have a chance to work with stuff like WordPress. Marketing digital was a little bit different. It was around about the time when social media was really becoming a big thing for organizations like hospitals and health organizations. So they needed assistance around that, and the website needed to be a lot better. And it was a lot more exciting and had a lot more sort of appreciation for the type of work that I did. And thankfully, it helped me move away from stuff like SharePoint and do more WordPress work. So after all that, the first thing I'm going to say, bear with me on this, is I really don't know what I'm doing. And that's okay, because anyone that says that they've got it all worked out, I mean, you should never admit that you've got it all worked out in this industry, because it changes every day, especially REST, stuff like the REST API coming in, which is a completely different way of working. You should never fully commit to something and say that, right, I've got it all worked out, and I have all of the answers. I still, after working like this for a number of years, still read industry blogs and to get advice. And it's funny, I'm a member of a couple of the agency freelance Slack channels and communities, and you do hear the same things about positioning your business, about finding clients, about marketing yourself, and it's great, but there is no real formula. Some people might get lucky. Some people might have friends that can give them quite a lot of work in a certain sector. Some people might have just a natural ability to do, for example, really great innovative design work, but there's no formula to be able to sell that. You've just got to get out there and start doing it. And the good news is, if you go to WordCamps, if you listen to WordSesh events or things like this, then you're going to go to the right people, and you're going to be able to hang around with people that run their own businesses and talk to them and work out where they started, after a few drinks in the after party, and how they got where they are. And you can pick up a lot more in a WordPress events after party than you would do around that sort of thing, than any of the talks that are given during the day. So that's a great piece of advice there, is that there are these formulas that are sold as how to start an agency or how to freelance, but you're better off speaking to someone that's been there and done it. And really, that's what this talk is all about. So moving forward, we've got the 10 steps, and I've picked these up over the years, and I've learned them directly in starting Make Do. But some of them were, as you'll see, some of them relate to way before that. Some of them are a little bit dated now, but the first one is that your ideas will kill you, or it needs focus. So you've got to focus on a single thing, and it's got to be one thing that you're good at. So my problem was always that I had tons of ideas. So I had all these great ideas, like, oh, wouldn't it be great to run a conference? Wouldn't it be great to build this app? Or wouldn't it be great to build this plugin and sell it? But what you got to do is fall back on what your experience is and run with it. And for me, this was building websites with WordPress. And we knew that was a saleable service that we were very good at, that we could move forward with and focus on and build a brand around. And so we put everything else on the back burner. And to get as to where we came from, these are all of our stupid ideas. So when we started out, again, remember that we were just two people, me and Matt, and we thought we were like Hewlett-Packard or some giant conglomerate. So we came up with the idea of MKDO. Now the business is as you know it, or as people might know it, is Make Do, but we're actually called MKDO Limited, which stands for Matt, Kim, Do, which is really lame when you think about it, but we couldn't, come up with any anything better than that. And then over the years, we thought, right, we've got MKDO as the middle, and then around it, we did all this other stuff. Over on the right, you can see Make Do, Digital Bound, Front End Do. These are all events. So our main focus originally was running conferences and trying to make money from them. And Make Do was actually the name of one of our bigger events that never got off the ground. And instead, we decided, oh, Make Do is quite a good name. So we turned that into an agency. However, Front End North that you can see there is still successful. We've got that event happening in Sheffield on the 29th of September. It's a big front end developer conference. The other, the Digital Ban, the Hack Day and DoerConf. Again, remember, we've got to focus because we're not a massive organization. So we've focused purely on that single conference for now, and we'll probably, hopefully, come back to the others later. Digital Origami on the left-hand side, that was the original name for agency. So Make Do as an agency, we were calling it Digital Origami, which, as you've probably worked out, the initials are O. So again, it all made sense to and link at the time anyway. And then Make Micro was an incredibly good idea that we still try and go back to today, where we would build the smaller, more niche microsites at a low cost, a brochureware type site based on pre-existing WordPress templates, and sell them for the upper limit was around about £1,000. So if a client would come to us and say, I've got a budget of this, I just need a very small brochureware website, we wouldn't give them the full agency service. We'd send them to Make Micro, which was just us, but with a different, a different name. The problem there is that you can't juggle all of this, all the events. You've got to simply concentrate on what works and what you're good at. So we got rid of all that and focused purely on the agency early on and tried to make that profitable. Now, you're going to need someone who potentially doesn't understand your business as web digital, but has been there, done it, and worked with other people. So this is Steve. He is essentially he's our accountant, and he works with us. He's our financial advisor as well. And the great thing about Steve is that he doesn't know anything about WordPress. He doesn't know anything about web design or anything like that. But whenever we sit down and talk with him, he constantly challenges us to do, like, he asks us, what are we working on? Why aren't we, charging more for clients? How is business going? And you can ask him. We are able to ask him anything we want at our business advisor meetings. Like, for example, how to when we first hired, we were talking, what do we think the best solution is for hiring? Early on in the business, we had no idea how to pay ourselves. We'd been working as freelancers before and just taking money out of the bank. And you can't do that when you're a limited company agency. If you do, you've got to have, an audit trail. And one of the things that Steve managed to do for us is really sort all the financial stuff out for us early on and put us on the right track. Because if you don't have anyone, unless this sort of thing comes naturally, then what, maybe your advisor wouldn't be a financial person. But Steve, for us, is completely invaluable. We've got other advisors and mentors, but Steve is the one that we always tend to fall back on. Hanging with the right people is really important. And I mean, really people in the industry, people that you spend time with, that have done what you've done. And it goes back to what I said about WordCamps and after parties. So if you take the mantra that a WordCamp can change your life, because it did for me when I went to WordCamp, the first WordCamp Europe. It was the biggest WordCamp I'd ever been to. First time I'd ever been abroad, out of the UK for a conference. And after that, I think it was like a month, 6 weeks, and I just quit the job that I had and decided, right, what exactly is holding me back to be able to do this? Because if you spend time at a WordCamp, again, speaking to people that already do it, you realize that they're no different to you. So you're hanging with the right people, and slowly you understand, well, these are just normal, regular guys. You can sit down and have a bit like Yoast and realize, oh, this he's got a million plugins installed, but really he's just he's just a guy that focused on a single path and was successful. So this is an image of one of the rooms at WordCamp, the first WordCamp Europe. You can, if you've got a keen eye, you can see me sitting up in the middle. And like I say, after this event, my life changed completely. I think I had sort of about a week hangover from the event that was just really me wanting to change things at home, and then just took the plunge. So failure is always an option. And if you can fail, get it out of the way early. So we looked at that slide earlier with all the logos on, and you notice that some of the products on there, like Make Micro or some of the events, aren't happening anymore. They've failed. They've become failures. And there's a Winston Churchill quote that I won't try and get too prolific about, and it's success consists of going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. And what that means is you've just got to keep going. If you fail on one thing, again, go back and focus on something that you know that you're not going to be able to fail at, or at least do better at. And my original failure was a project called Wonder Themes. So what I was doing while working 9-to-5 job, I had a small freelance business called Base6 Design. I was pulling in a couple of grand a month on projects, building WordPress websites for clients, enjoying it, but working long hours to get that money in. So what I decided is I would try something different. This was back in 2008, 2009, when premium themes were really becoming very popular. And I had the idea of a WordPress theme marketplace that had a slightly different spin on stuff like Mojo Themes or Theme Forest. So I took all the money that I'd been saving up from doing freelance and invested it in this idea. And I spent 3 years working on it. And I spent all that money building the project with hiring external developers that I knew. And after about 18 months, I kind of realized that I didn't want to work on the project anymore, because the reality of running a theme marketplace is very different to what you might think. You've got to put a lot more hours in. You need a lot more people, and there's a reason that Theme Forest and some of the other theme marketplaces charge such a premium to sell on their service. It's because it's not cheap to run that kind of service. And I was under the impression that you could do it with lower costs and do it a lot leaner and focus on other areas like support. And we were live for about 12 months on Wonder Themes. I can't remember the exact figures, but I think profit wise it made about £30. So after costs, and it cost me about £10,000 of savings to build the product and to get it out there. And it still wasn't finished. It didn't have the functionality that we wanted, but we launched it, without things like an affiliate system. But these mistakes, you've got to embrace them, and you've got to say, right, I might have failed with Wonder Themes. I might have wasted 10 grand, but I learned from that I'm not a great developer, so I need to hire people or work with people that are better than me at development. It made me better at project management, better at focus. And I learned so much from building Wonder Themes, and to take that into the other project that we now do, that although it was a failure, it was a great success in the sense that it gave me the confidence to move forward. The only thing that really upsets me now is that I didn't realize sooner with Wonder Themes that it was a dead horse, if you like, and we were just flogging it. It lasted, like I said, about 3 years. It should have really been maybe just 1 or maybe even 6 months before I realized. But that was because I was working on it part-time and not really giving it a fair whack. So related to that, and then this is what I mentioned about hiring people in and realizing your potential. Don't do it alone. So my slides notes that I've got in front of me are quite cheesy, but I'll read them out. So there'd be no Apple without Wozniak, and no Google without Larry and Sergey, and there'd be no Make Do without Matt. So this is Matt Watson. There's many Matts in the WordPress community, but this is my Matt. And I love this photo because this is when we were invited to an award ceremony that we were nominated for one of our events in London, and we all got dressed up. It was actually in a bit of a dive, but anyway, we got dressed up wearing tuxedos, and the idea was that we would drive down on the day, get changed in the 24-hour car park, arrive at the event, go back to the car, get changed, and then stay at the hotel like next to this 24-hour car park. So we got down to the award ceremony, all good, had a great time. Walked back to the car park around about midnight, and it was locked. So we couldn't get in. We couldn't get to the car to get changed, to get our stuff. So we had to sleep in our tuxedos, and it was actually in a hostel, because back then we had absolutely no money to invest in the company. So we were spending like 20 on a hostel. And the next morning we had to get up mega early because the hostel was like a shared room with 5 or 6 different people. And we'd slept in our tuxedos because that's all we had to wear. And everyone that walked into the room saw us sleeping in our tuxedos and just thought it was hilarious. So the next we looked a little bit worse for wear. And you can see from that photo that this is the kind of realism that running a business gives to you. So it's not all bells, whistles, and parties. You might, have to get your name out there and to do marketing. You've got to go to these events and you've got to struggle, and you might end up sleeping in a tuxedo. And but the great thing is, I didn't have to do that alone. I did it with Matt, and Matt is a back-end developer, a code beast, something that I'm not. So it was great early on that we could have that dynamic where he would write the code, I would be able to do design and front end. And then when we hired people in, they could accommodate so I could work more on the business. Ignorance is a wonderful skill. I tend to switch off. I've got these things, ignorance walls. So if you reach something that you know that you have no interest in, and either someone else can help do it for you or with you, then be ignorant to it. One of the analogies I used to use was there was a big photocopier in the old office I used to work in. And it was, I don't know, from the 70s or something. No one really knew how to use it. It had this strange code that you had to put in to get copies out of it. And the only person that knew how to use it was one of the secretaries. And you could obviously maybe spend a few hours trying to work out how it worked. But instead, you could just say, oh, Carol, can you please get me some photocopies, please? And she would go and do it. And that's the way that I work now. So PHP coding, for example, I never touch any sort of. I had a resolution at New Year's last year, where I said I will never write any PHP code after this year. I've been semi-successful in that, in the sense that I've maybe had a couple of themes together since then, but I haven't done any sort of PHP work because it takes me 10 times longer than someone like Matt or another member of the team to do something very simple. So I need to be ignorant about that. So finances, tax, law, hire a lawyer, get a financial advisor, use an accountant, use stuff like Free Agent to give you an understanding as to what your numbers look like. All of this I am aware of, but I'm ignorant to it because I know that if I tried to learn it, my job would managing director would be affected by it. And also I wouldn't do a great job. So you've got to build core skills that you're good at in the business and run with them. So for me now, it's more business development, finding clients, working on the website, marketing, and doing project management and work, doing client development. So all the skills that I used to have, which were design, development, WordPress, have really gone out the window because we've got people that are better than me at doing it. And I'm now ignorant to some of the more modern technology that's come in place. I was speaking to Simon Dixon from Code for the People about when SAS and LESS and all of the CSS pre-processes out, and he just said, I'm not going to bother learning them because by then he'd hired people into their team, and he said, CSS is enough for me. There's no way I'm ever going to learn how to set up grunt tasks and things like that. So he just closed it down. He said, right, I know CSS. If there's any old projects that I hack together, then fine on them, but I'm never going to learn this new thing. So you've got to pick your battles well and only choose what you're good at. That's why at Make Do, we try to make sure that our front-end developers stay away from back-end code as much as possible and vice versa. So we have people that write plugins and people that write themes, and there is obviously crossover in WordPress. But I would never go to our front-end guy and say, oh, can you write me a plugin that does X, Y, Z? You would start with sort of the back-end or the technical lead. Okay, so number 7 is just that you can do this. You've got to have confidence. Even if it believes in you, but you believe in yourself, you can fake it. So you can say, right, okay, I've got this great job, I'm gonna start a business. I'm gonna quit that, and it's going to be great. At the time, my wife, for example, had no confidence that I would make a success of it. In fact, nobody did. But it didn't matter because if you've got the own confidence, even if that confidence is faked, you can build confidence up over years. And like as I say, if confidence doesn't come naturally, then you've just got to have faith that it will work out. If you project confidence to clients and project confidence to other members of the that, you know, yes, we're able to do this. Yes, we're able to build, work with the bigger clients, run events with hundreds of people, then that confidence will then be installed in them as well. And people mention imposter syndrome quite a lot as being something that that slows them down, because some of the best developers that I've met still have this thing called imposter syndrome. And it makes you wonder why someone who you know is a very solid developer has no confidence with what they're doing, and it's when really they should have. So it's your job, sometimes at least, to be able to install them with that confidence, because you guarantee that there's people out there. There's going to be developers out there that are filled with confidence but lack any sort of skill, and they'll probably get the jobs that you're to get. So don't put yourself down. Don't ever think that someone else is better than you when you've put the work in, and always have confidence. And you can get confidence again from going to events, meeting other people, and realizing that they're just like you. No one's special. You know, there's no superheroes out there. We're all just doing the same thing, and we're all in the same boat. Okay, number 8 is do not rush. I am a very old man now in terms of web. So it wasn't until I was 30, really, when I realized, oh yeah, you know what, you can run a business. It's something that can be done. I know people that have done it. In my 20s, I just spent time being just an idiot, really, and not understanding that this wonderful thing known as the internet and the web was evolving around me, and I was part of it, but I wasn't taking full advantage of it. And then when I was in my 30s, I went to my first WordCamp in the UK, and I was like, okay, this is great. And I think Mike Little as well, if you catch one of his talks recently, the one he did at Europe this year in Vienna, he had the same problem where he co-founded WordPress, and then he went to a WordCamp a few years later, and he said there was a round table, and everyone was asked who in this room earns their living from building WordPress stuff. And Mike didn't put his hand up, because at the time he was working on non-WordPress related projects in a job. And as the co-founder, that kind of gives you a real kick in the ass and says, right, okay, maybe I should be doing this. And then obviously the doubt is, but you know, all these young upstarts that have been, that have got infinite time on their hands and infinite energies, and no financial, no mortgage to worry about, they're going to be better than me. But it doesn't matter. As long as you've got, again, going back to the confidence thing, confidence to do it. I mean, we're not all Mike Little. We don't have the co-founder of WordPress on our CV. But I always thought that there's nothing wrong with waiting. People start businesses in the 40s, in the 50s. If you feel that's the right time for you, then don't rush it, and don't ever think it's too late. Because if you look at some of the people that have been successful, then not all of them started when they were 18, 19. Some of them do wait until they're in the 30s or even the 40s. Okay, pricing is a pain. This is something that you won't get right. So when I was a freelancer, pricing was very different to how we price work for the agency. Honestly, when I was a freelancer, you just sort of priced at what you could get away with and hope that the client would pay it. I was never a freelancer that went to premises and worked in an office with the client. I think I did that once. But when I did that, then we had the first option. Everyone offers this. It's the day rate. And this works well for a lot of areas, such as, lawyers, for example, they charge a day rate, and they're doing all right. So what you've got to understand is the day rate, number one, is it right for you? And if it is, what is that day rate going to be? Is it going to be competitive? Is it going to be so that you're on something like Odesk or Elance and you're charging 15 quid a day, which you really don't want to be doing? Or is it going to be something that you would say a fixed amount? So I'll say, I'll give you 10 days for, I don't know, 5 grand, something like that. And then because we think it'll take that much time. But it's tough. We're trying our best really to move away from the day rate model, because it doesn't really distinguish the type of work we do now to the work we used to do. However, working with other agencies, you still have to use that model because it's what they're used to, and their financial team need to work out what they're going to be spending and how many days you've worked on it. The problem with a day rate really as well is that you are guaranteed to go over the original estimate, and that can get expensive for the client, and it can lead to some uncomfortable, unless you've got your estimate bang on, it can lead to some uncomfortable conversations. A better way to price your services is using price framing. Now, this is an area that we do try to do now at Make Do. It's evolved a little bit since I made this slide, but you've got to imagine that there are 3 types of client. There's the premium client, there's the standard client, and there's the value client. And each of them have their own value. If it was so for example, the value clients might not have the biggest budget, but they might look good in the portfolio and they might lead to extra work. So this might be even a favor for a couple of hundred quid. You might build a website for a charity, because you're passionate about that charity, and you might even do it for free, and you'll build it so that it's obviously as good as you can do within the time given. But imagine then that charity has on the board a chairman that runs another company that needs a website further down the line, and he likes the charity website, so you can then say, right, that's helped marketed the sort of price C project. Doing it for free for anyone that isn't like a charity, I wouldn't recommend. Always try and get something out of it, because what you can end up then in a position where they don't value the work that you've done at all. Yeah, definitely. Again, if it's a charity that you really believe in, we've got 2 charity sites that we built for very low cost. One of them was because it was due to a friend of mine that died, and his legacy charity, and that is something that is a passion project, and it's something that we'll always maintain. We host it for free. We work with the people that run the charity, and nothing might ever come out of that. But if you look at it as a way to promote the business, then it's not the end of the world that you didn't get the big bucks for it. Moving on to the middle tier. So these are your standard clients. So you can apply a day rate model to this and say, all right, okay, I'm going to charge 500 quid a day for anyone that knocks on the door. And we're going to say, right, this project takes 10, 20 days. Here's an invoice. And this is what you would like to pay your customers to pay you most of the time. So it's finding the ideal client that says, right, I appreciate that's how much you want to charge. There's going to be no real negotiations. Here's a purchase order, and let's just get on with the work. And that middle tier for us is generally other agencies that need our support building larger WordPress builds that their internal team doesn't have the skill set for, or they're just designers. They don't really have the skill set to move forward with the more advanced WordPress stuff. And it's great, but it's rare. It's rare that you can put a pitch forward with a cost and there's no negotiation around cost, or it doesn't change. But you've got to have an understanding written down somewhere, maybe in a business plan that says, this is what we want to charge and these are the clients that we want to work with. Moving on to the premiums, these are the sharks, the whales. They start as large projects that will take up potentially all of your agency capacity. So a client might come in and say, all right, I've got 100 grand, but I need this in 6 months. And you'll be like, well, we've only got a team of 4 or 5 people. So that's great, but we're not going to be able to do any other client work while we do that. And therefore your other clients are going to suffer. But then again, you get this big project and it's very demanding. It also is undesirable work. Now, undesirable work might be not working with WordPress. And obviously don't do this unless you really have to. But if a client comes to you and says, right, we need an intranet, for example, that's got some integrations and things like that, and you can maybe see that WordPress could work, but they really don't want to use it. If you're charging more for it, at least you've got the financial gain as the fact that you didn't use WordPress. Maybe you had to use some other platform. But undesirable work might also be working with very demanding clients that are on the phone all the time, that don't respect boundaries like other clients, that you need to really micromanage or like to micromanage you. So, and if you're charging them, high-level retainers and things like that, then it's less of a pain to work like that. So the premium rate is obviously where everyone aims to be. But it's really projects that really kill the team. It's like when this project's over, everyone sighs, oh, thank God, or when it's launched. It's not sort of the middle tier work where that's the kind of work you should be doing and just ticking over. So obviously, Google that, price framing bundling. There's a lot of information out there, and by no means I'm no expert, but it is something that we try to adhere to. So the last one is obvious to me, and probably obvious to everyone that's watching and everyone that's ever been to a WordCamp, is that you should always learn. The industry changes all the time, so you've got to go on like I don't know, Smashing Mag. If it's WordPress, I would highly recommend being a post status member or checking out the post status blog, because the work that's done there is real WordPress journalism that it really cuts up all the different things that's happening in the WordPress community, from events to plugins to themes, and puts it into a weekly newsletter that's easy to read. You also get access to their Slack channel, things like that, and you get the feeling that you don't have to spend as much time out there learning this yourself, but you've got to keep up with the changes in WordPress, because every release has its different nuances. Every plugin that's installed one day might be replaced with another that's better. We've got, again, the REST API coming in from this cloud above everyone that's changing the way that WordPress is, number one, perceived as an application, because it'll mean that you can now build completely different systems using WordPress via REST API methods. But it also means that you've got to learn how to extend that. And if you leave it too late, then you're gonna struggle. So go to WordCamps, local meetups, business seminars, geek ups, anything. For me, events are the place where all of this is picked up. You can read a book, you can read a magazine, you can read an ebook, but hearing it from a talk in a dark room on a Tuesday night with a few people is always, in my opinion, a better way to share that information. And also, the most important thing is, when you've learned it, go out there and talk about it. So do what I'm doing now. Try and get into a WordCamp or a WordPress meetup and talk about your experiences. No matter how little you might be thinking you're bringing to the table, there's always something that someone will take away from what you're saying. So the last one, and I added this in this morning, I was toying with leaving it out, is know the platform. And I've got this wonderful old tweet here from Cal Hancock, where he says that he chuckles because people bitch about WordPress and then they go and build their own obscure CMS. And that's, for me, why we use WordPress. And it's, for me, why anyone that builds their own CMS is really setting themselves up to fail, because you need to, as a WordPress user, evangelize it. You need to make sure that you've accepted the problems with WordPress. Yes, it's not the most modern, sexy platform anymore. Yes, PHP, people still turn their noses up at it, and that's fine. Let them turn their nose up at it. Let them go away and waste time building their own CMS, when you know that when you build something with WordPress that you'll be able to support it, and it's not going anywhere. It's certainly, it's growing year on year, every year, and it's definitely 100% going to be here in the next 5-10 years. And I always say that you're a genius or an idiot if you build your own CMS, because if you build a CMS, I mean, some of them out there might be a genius. They'll build this wonderful CMS and it'll be better than WordPress. And in 5 years, it'll start to change to the WordPress ecosystem. But really, are you a genius? I'm not. So I'm not going to go out there and do that. I'm going to instead put all my chips on WordPress and stick to that. So that's me done. All the slides out of the way. I'll say cheers and move forward with the wonderful WordSesh 24-hour sessions. And if there's any questions or anything that we can follow up on, then you can find me online. MK Jones on Twitter, KIMB.me on the web. And thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Kim. Yes. Thank you. And we'll be back with the next session in a little bit. And you guys can keep asking Kim questions. The chat remains in the session, so you can check those from time to time.
Great.
To see if there are more questions. All right.
All right.
See you soon.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.